After completing the charm missions, we get a cutscene where Kerrigan and her Zergling pet are sitting around doing nothing. Kerrigan then recognises Zeratul, showing that all her memories have returned. Despite being much weaker than she was and having a ship full of Zerg, she attacks Zeratul by herself. Fortunately for Kerrigan, Zeratul stands around doing nothing, which allows for some fight scenes that can be added to the trailer. After realising that being beaten by Kerrigan while remaining silent isn't working, Zeratul decides to actually deliver his universe-saving message using his hand. Even though he could have told Kerrigan about it using his voice, his psychic powers, or another magical glowing crystal. We then get the first of many retcons about the Zerg. In Zeratul's vision, Zerus is a jungle planet where the Zerg left behind by the Overmind evolved by eating other Zerg. However, according to the Starcraft 1 manual, Zerus was an ash world with firestorms. The Zerg were a race of insectoids that made new Zerg by burrowing into the bodies of other species to control and mutate them. The Zerg wiped out every species on Zerus, and when the Overmind and the Zerg left Zerus, it was a lifeless world. So Zerus should look more like Char and be devoid of any Zerg. Overall, this scene makes little sense since Zeratul had no reason to let Kerrigan beat him up, and could simply have told her about Zerus in multiple different ways. Also, Zeratul doesn't seem to hate Kerrigan for killing Eldaris or corrupting the Matriarch. The Zerg origin has also been changed so Kerrigan can meet Primal Zerg. Next, you're given a choice of whether to go to Zerus or Chaldea. As Chaldea is controlled by the Protoss, I chose this planet so that Zeratul can act as my emissary and negotiate with the Protoss. Unfortunately, upon arriving in Chaldea, Zeratul immediately runs away and doesn't ever care that the Protoss are trying to kill Kerrigan, or that Kerrigan is trying to slaughter an entire Protoss colony. So, since there's no way to deal with Chaldea peacefully, it's time to reload and head to Zerus. Once on Zerus, Zeratul states that the power of Zerus called Kerrigan here, even though Kerrigan only knew about this planet because Zeratul told her about it. He then tells Kerrigan that she has to let the planet remake her, even though it's unclear how Zeratul knows that Zerus can remake her, since he has no idea what this is meant to mean. Though Kerrigan is skeptical of Zeratul's prophecy, she goes along with it because it will benefit her. While this is good as Kerrigan is shown to have some agency, rather than following a prophecy for the sake of following it, it does make her look gullible since she's going to an alien planet because her enemy told her it can help her, rather than as part of a plan. When Kerrigan asks why Zeratul is helping her, he states that the Xel'Naga want Kerrigan to be the leader of the swarm. Even though the Xel'Naga prophecy, as interpreted by the Preservers, told Zeratul about Amon's plan to cover the universe in darkness. It was Tassadar who said that Kerrigan would free the Zerg from slavery, and the Overmind showed Zeratul a vision of what would happen if Kerrigan died. Unsure if this is a retcon or the writers forgot who told Zeratul what. Even though Kerrigan says that we all have to pay for what we did, she never has to pay for anything she did in Brood Wars or Wings of Liberty. Mainly because the prophecy says that she has to be kept alive, so Reyna, Mengsk and Zeratul can't punish Kerrigan for the deaths of Phoenix, Duke or the Matriarch. Nor can Kerrigan be punished for the billions of civilians she killed. Zerus Mission 1. Wait the Ancient. This mission starts with Zeratul telling Kerrigan she needs to awaken the Ancient One to obtain the power of Zerus. Though it's not as clear how Zeratul knows this. Zeratul then leaves even though Kerrigan is about to be attacked, and he needs Kerrigan to be alive to prevent Amon controlling the Zerg swarm. Given that in Tassadar's vision Kerrigan is essential to preventing Amon destroying the Terrans and Protoss, it's odd that he doesn't do everything he can to ensure that Kerrigan succeeds in whatever she's meant to be doing on Zerus. Next we get the Ancient One, who is asleep and won't wake up until you feed him. For unknown reasons, he doesn't want to eat Zerg, despite the Primal Zerg getting stronger by eating Zerg. So instead he has to be fed Primal Zerg Quillgores. Also, given that the oldest Zerg are meant to be the best hunters, it makes no sense that he's sleeping in a pile of rubble, rather than hunting or leading the primal Zerg. Brack then appears and wants to kill the Zerg swarm for no reason. He also wants to prevent the Ancient One waking for no reason. The base is then attacked by Guardians, but the player is able to recruit Mutalisks to defeat them. Given that both Zerg units were made by infesting creatures the Zerg found on other planets, neither should be present on Zerus. After feeding the Ancient One enough Quilgors and killing Brack, the player gets another retcon. The Ancient One claims that Amon came to Zerus, made the Zerg into a weapon, and took almost all of them away. However, in the Starcraft 1 manual, it's stated that the Xel'Naga manipulated the Zerg to give them the purity of essence. The Zerg wiped out every non-Zerg species on Zerus, then attacked and killed the Xel'Naga. The Ancient One's explanation also introduces a plot hole, as he doesn't explain how Amon died, since the Zerg were supposed to be under his control when they left Zerus. The Ancient One also says that Kerrigan has to become pure to obtain more power, but doesn't explain how becoming pure will help accomplish this. Back on the Leviathan, Zurvan explains that Zerg bound to a single overriding will are corrupted. This means as long as they're bound to Kerrigan's will, they'll remain corrupted. It also means that Primal Zerg may have chosen to follow their pack leader. In the Evolution Chamber, Abathur says that the Primal Zergs are copying the Zerg Hydralisks, which is impossible as I don't have this unit. Like the Mutalisks on Char, it seems that Blizzard expected the player to play these missions in a specific order, since they make less sense when played out of order. Zerus Mission 2, Crucible. This mission starts with Zurvan explaining about a power more ancient than him that comes with a great cost. Yet he doesn't explain how he knows about this power or its great cost. It's possible that he had someone else test this area, but this isn't elaborated on. The creation of the swarm host based on Primal Zerg is good, as it uses the narrative to explain why this Zerg wasn't created in a previous mission. Although Kerrigan gets the magical pool, Zurvan tells Kerrigan that she needs to make a sacrifice, but it's unclear how he knows a sacrifice needs to be made or even what Kerrigan is sacrificing. In spite of the possible dangers, Kerrigan stands in the magic pool and states that it will make her even stronger than before, despite having no evidence to support her belief that she'll become stronger, or that it'll even be able to change her. It's also unclear why Kerrigan is relying on this magic pool to transform her when she has Abathur, who turned her into the Queen of Blades and could have transformed her at any time. It's also unclear why Kerrigan needs to be stronger to defeat Menks when she's going to have the Zerg swarm attack him. Technically, all she needs is the swarm to be stronger than the Dominion armies. While waiting for Kerrigan to hatch, the remains of Brack's pack attack you, causing Brack's death. This is good storytelling, as the actions of this pack are in response to the player's actions. Later, Yagdra also attacks you and Brack's pack in an attempt to control both territories. Again, this is good storytelling, as the actions of the characters are in response to the player's actions. The Primal Zerg then begin fighting each other, which reduces the difficulty of this mission in a way that feels natural rather than using a gimmick, because Blizzard needed a mission to be completable with very few units. Unfortunately, allowing the player to spawn locusts to defeat nearby enemies is not a good way to reduce the difficulty, mainly because it makes no sense for a magical pool that transforms Terrans into Primal Zerg to also be able to create numerous locusts, but not any other Primal Zerg, simply because there's a large amount of primal essence in the pool. After Kerrigan emerges from her chrysalis, all the hundreds of Primal Zerg surrounding her magically disappear. This is a lazy way to end the mission and makes no sense in context. By contrast, in Starcraft 1, after Kerrigan emerged from the chrysalis, she still had to defeat the Terran armies on Char. While it seems odd that Menxon Core Hole is able to sense that Kerrigan is now a Zerg, in Starcraft 1, Kerrigan did contact Mensk and Rayna psychically when she was in the chrysalis, so this isn't an example of a random event, but a poorly explained one. Mengs is also shown having the Zelnaga artifact, but this isn't too surprising as Raynor and Warfield didn't have it, so this only left Mengs as the person who was likely to have it. Back on the Leviathan we meet Dehaka, who joins Kerrigan and explains for essences and gets nothing for the entire game. He also contributes almost nothing to the game as well. Kerrigan states that Amon was influencing her in an unspecified way, and that she was cleansed of this influence by the Zelnaga artifact. So Kerrigan didn't need to become a primal Zerg to become free of Amon, and transformed entirely because she wanted to become more powerful. Zerus Mission 3 Supreme. In the final mission, Kerrigan has to defeat the planet's 3 primal Zerg pack leaders, who all live nearby each other for some reason, in a series of boss battles. On the way to the first boss you encounter primal roaches, even though I didn't bring roaches to Zerus. You then fight Yagdra, who led her armies against you in the previous mission. After Yagdra is defeated, you absorb her essence, which doesn't mutate Kerrigan in any way or let her gain any of Yagdra's abilities, despite the intro to this planet being all about how absorbing essences causes the Zerg to mutate. On the way to the second boss, you encounter primal Hydralisks, even though I didn't bring Hydralisks to Zerus. Since Abathur specifically mentions that primal Hydralisks were copied from the Zerg Swarm, the appearance of this unit is a greater continuity error than the roaches. You then fight Krythe, who is similar to the Butcher from Diablo 3 in that both charge at their opponents and have a breath weapon, though unlike the Butcher, Kareth breathes Zerg rather than fire. After Krythe is defeated and his essence is absorbed, Kerrigan yet again doesn't change in any way. On the way to the third boss you encounter primal Ultralusks, even though I didn't bring any Ultralusks to Zerus. Then Dehaka explains what Banelings are in case the player hasn't been to Char. Zurvan is then introduced, spawns additional units like Asmodan from Diablo 3, is killed, and their essence yet again doesn't affect Kerrigan in any way. After absorbing all 3 pack leaders, Zurvan attacks Kerrigan in order to absorb her essence and become stronger. While this is in character for all primal Zerg, it doesn't explain why Zurvan didn't help one of the other pack leaders become the strongest pack leader, so he could absorb them, rather than spending his time sleeping semi-buried in the ground. The battle against Zurvan is similar to the battle against Belial in Diablo 3, right down to the platform shape, though Zurvan attacks using giant tentacles, while Belial uses his arms. Once Zurvan is defeated, Kerrigan absorbs his essence, and yet again doesn't change in any way despite the powerful essence she just absorbed. Back on the Leviathan, Kerrigan now seems to be more fond of Abathur, due to his abilities to improve the Swarm. This is good character development, as Kerrigan's opinion of Abathur has changed because he's shown his abilities can be useful to Kerrigan's goals. Conclusion. While there were some good ideas in the Zerus missions, they were outweighed by the bad. These missions had the advantage that since the developers knew the player would have more than basic units, they were able to make missions that relied less on gimmicks than the Char and Chaldea missions. The good parts of these missions were that they had good world building, as the Primal Zerg had their own warring factions and they responded to Kerrigan's attacks by trying to expand their influence over other areas rather than just attacking Kerrigan. The Zerg philosophy about constantly devouring others to become stronger also fit with how the Zerg are constantly trying to evolve to become stronger, while the way the Primal Zerg acted towards each other was also in line with this belief. However, the bad parts are that the developers retcon so much about the original Zerg origins. The Zerg were all controlled by the Overmind and all less Zerus because they consumed all the species on this planet. The Zerg didn't evolve by eating species to take their essence, but instead captured a species and mutated it into a Zerg version of this species, with Kerrigan being a prime example of how the Zerg incorporated Terrans into the Zerg Swarm. As a result, the Primal Zerg shouldn't have had any units that resembled Zerg units, especially not Zerg units that I didn't bring to Zerus. The plot also made little sense. Zeratul's vision showed him that the universe would be doomed if Kerrigan died, yet he chose to let Kerrigan beat him rather than explain anything to her, take Kerrigan to Zerus despite having no idea how this planet would help her, then leaves Kerrigan despite Kerrigan's survival being the only thing that can save the universe. Based on the prophecy, Zeratul should have delayed going to his people to face their judgment until Kerrigan had done whatever she had to do to save the universe, and especially not abandoning her pre-transformation when she's about to fight a Protoss army on Chaldea or a Terran army on Char. The plot also ignored the explanation about Zerg evolution that it provided. Despite the Zerg being shown to mutate by absorbing other Zerg, Kerrigan mutates by standing in a magic spawning pool, rather than because she absorbed the most powerful Zerg on Zerus. The game missed a good chance to show Kerrigan slowly mutating into the Queen of Blades based on her level rather than a single event. It also never explained why Kerrigan needs to be more powerful. If it's to make all the other Zerg queens obey her, then they should all return to the Swarm as soon as Kerrigan left this planet, because Kerrigan is now more powerful than she's ever been, so she should be able to control them the way she could before she was uninfested. Despite the Zerg being considered corrupt by the Primal Zerg, because they were controlled by Kerrigan, Kerrigan never does anything to make her Zerg swarm less corrupt. Lastly, character motivation is also poor. Despite Zeratul seeing a prophecy where only Kerrigan can save the universe, he does almost nothing to help Kerrigan. Despite being the strongest Primal Zerg, Zurvan just lies around, despite helping other Zerg to become stronger so he could absorb their essence, being more beneficial to him. He could also have left Zerus in search of more powerful species, like the Overmind did in Starcraft 1. The hacker has little purpose, as everything he did could have been done by Zurvan, while the Primal Zerg that Kerrigan controls are rarely ever used in any other mission. Kerrigan also has no hesitation or regret about becoming the Queen of Blades again, despite the entire finale of the previous game being to uninfest her. I suspect that Kerrigan becoming human was just a gimmick the developers added to Wings of Liberty to make Kerrigan less powerful at the start of this game, and that the developers always planned to turn her back into a Zerg. This would explain why Kerrigan doesn't care that she's become a Zerg again.